welcome to another Credible Vegetable Report. I'm joined today by my good friend, Mr. Tommy Wilkins, who's joined us again. Tommy, my co host today, brings to the show 40 plus years of buying and selling produce and growing fresh produce. Uh, Thanks, Tommy, for joining us.
Proud to be here.
Yeah, so this is the second time in the can with us here on the Credible Vegetable Report. Matt, I don't think's ever coming back. I know as soon as he got back from freaking Europe, he took off to Mexico.
You know, it's a tough life, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, and I think you're about to embark on a trip back. We're recording this on an evening tonight. You've given up some of your Texas time here in the evening to visit with me. You're heading off to Mexico, is that right?
Yeah, we got a family wedding on Friday night, so there's 11 of us getting on American to Cabo in the morning, and all the kids and grandkids. It's a pretty exciting weekend.
Man, that is also 11 of you.
Yeah.
How many grandkids on that?
I have two, and they're both going. I have two kids, they're going, and then some of Barbara's siblings and cousins are going. So, big family weekend.
Fantastic, man. Well, sounds like a great time. And shoot, I wished I was going with you. I'm stuck here in 110-degree temperatures here in beautiful Tucson. So
It's smoking today in Texas.
yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get down to the weather. And I guess I'll give a quick rundown for everybody. Today, yeah, we're going to definitely talk about weather. There's also some breaking news around what's going on in terms of trade deficit. We've actually in the ag space, right? We'll talk a little bit about that. Also got a story on Biden, and he's apparently signed a deal to help expand the border. I bet the bridges, basically make them bigger so we can get more stuff over quicker. So that's some good news. We'll touch on that, and then we're going to jump the pond, Tommy, as they say, and we're going to go across and see what's going on with the strawberry guy over there. I think he's got an interesting concept. So, yeah, we're gonna hit those subjects, and then of course we'll close this thing up talking about those things that are near and dear to mine and your heart for sure, and that's the dry veg space, some of those squash and cuke markets, and what's going on there. So, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go, brother.
Let's rock.
All right. Well, let's talk. So it's hot in Texas. I mean, what is hot in Texas, Tommy? It's damn July. I mean, you guys ought to be in the sweet spot right now. Come on.
You know, the parts of the country in Texas that don't have humidity, it's triple digits. If you have humidity, it's in the high 90s. I think it was 96 today in Dallas, but the feel like temperature is sure triple digits. And we had an awful wet May, and that has ended, and now we're paying for it.
Yeah. So I know, yeah, obviously family's still there in the greater Dallas area for sure. And I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I was just amazed how nice the weather was for that time of year. But yeah, I think it sounds like that honeymoon, as they say, has ended, and you guys are now in the thick of the heat.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hot, and it's certainly living up to the bill.
Yeah. Well, it's and looking across the map out on the East Coast, they've been under they don't deal with heat too good, and they've been under a heat wave, and then parts of that area, if you get over into some of it, they've had some crazy rains up in the upper Midwest part of it. It sounds like some flooding and uh, yeah, flooding basically.
It's It seems like the swings are greater than they have been in the past. You can blame it on lots of things, but more tornadoes, more heat, more tropical storms. It's been a rough spring.
Well, it's going to make growing. I mean, I'm still curious. The whole veg deal's moving up into, it's North Carolina, Kentucky now, and it's going to be on its way up into Michigan and that part of the world as well. So it's going to be an interesting summer because those boys, they got crops in the ground and will be harvesting if they're not already in some of those places pretty quick.
We're seeing some production out of Kentucky now, and I think some of this dramatic weather that we've had has just caused a few more gaps,
Yep.
and that's good to help the market prop up a little bit. But those gaps have been very costly, and The retailers are fighting just a consistent supply of some of these items.
Yeah, and I guess for me, looking out, it's realistically. I mean, everybody, tuning in, they're going to know what we're looking at weather now. But I mean, things look like it's going to be pretty disruptive through the summer. I mean, just flat out. I mean, with the hurricane predictions they've got, there's another tropical storm already off of the Florida coast heading that way, and what we were just talking about in the Midwest, and yeah, looks like it's going
It
to be
was
interesting.
new on the news today that the Gulf water temps are as high as they were the year Katrina hit New Orleans, and so it's problematic if we do get some storms that are slow building out in that Gulf. It's water temperature is going to feed those storms pretty good. It sounds like.
So did they get how was the rains in South Texas from Alberto? Did they get much?
Yeah, you heard anywhere from 4 to 8 inches in place, and obviously that's beautiful.
Yep.
We leached some salt out of the topsoil, and I haven't heard if we got anything, into any storage of any kind. But anytime you can get 4 to 6 inches of rain in a drought, you certainly will take it.
No, that's a fact, and those guys definitely need it. Hopefully, that gave them some relief, and that's good news because it's a storm that came aboard that didn't have a lot of wind, so it didn't do a tremendous amount of damage. It mostly brought water, which is what they needed.
Yes.
And tell you what, they need some water in Northern Cal, man. The fires have started. I was reading a report. San Francisco, in that area, 1,000 lightning strikes, and it's what they call dry lightning, which not sure about dry lightning, but I guess it occurs when that's when there's no water, there's no rain.
That's crazy. I had never heard of that.
Yeah,
That's it's a shame as much snow as they've had the last couple of years, and the infrastructure is not there to capture some of the snowfall and all that kind of stuff. But that's a story for a whole nother day.
yeah, no, it is for sure. And again, I mean, those guys are used to it, but it is that time of year, and with those lightning strikes, it's setting lots of places ablaze out there. And I know New Mexico just they finally that hurricane saved them. They had a pretty bad wildfire going as well. So the wildfire
I
season's
heard
here.
over 15,000 acres and over 1,000, 2,000. I've heard various reports of structures lost. Couple of the guys from an Albertson store had some incredible shots of that fire jumping up in the background of the store, and they totally evacuated the town. I think they've let the long-term residents back in, but then it just came a downpour off of that storm, and you had some flooding. So it's feast or famine.
So that was Ruidoso, right?
Ruidosa,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
what I thought. Well, yeah, the weather is it's a topic, and just like you said, it seems like it just seems to get. I don't know. I never know if it's just the fact that we've got more access to information and it's more readily available, or things are really getting worse. But I mean, I can just tell you from an ag space, it just feels like it's getting worse everywhere.
Yeah,
So
it's a tough world to navigate.
yeah, for sure. Well, one thing that is also tough to navigate, something else that we're looking at, is there's a record trade deficit, 32 billion now. This is ag space, but it includes all ag, but it's a 32 billion dollar deficit in the ag space, which that's a big number, Tommy.
We were up in D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and I think one of the things they were talking about in tariffs and everything, but I heard them say that we've got to increase trade both ways, and I hope we can expand on that. I know the farmers need all the outlets they can, and it's not only fresh fruit and vegetables, but grain and other items, and the poor farmers need all the help they can get.
Well, yeah, and in the article, the article that I was reading, it was talking about, the trade deficit is really two key factors, and again, this is affecting all of it. But one, the strong dollar, which is great if you're traveling to another country, right? Having a strong dollar means we can go into Japan or whatever and buy things a lot cheaper. Uh, but it's not good when you're trying to export, right? When we're
Right.
trying to export, it makes our cost of goods higher and puts a cap on what we can send out or what people are willing to take on the other side. But the other thing is what we've talked about, with you and I talked about it. I've talked about it with Dustin, Matt and I covered it. But this labor issue, for the farms, the number and Dustin confirmed this last week in talking about squash selection and everything. But it's a 10% hit on their cost. That's what their cost of goods. It's 10%, and it's a number that is going up, and they still don't have the farmers to come do it.
You got a double-edged sword. You've got it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 to $8 a box, depending on the production cycle. But it's percentage-wise, it depends on the market. But the big problem is finding somebody that wants to do it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm hearing a lot. Is it's really coming down to and like I say, we're facing some of that same battle in our the Mexico operations for sure. Uh, but yeah, it is. It's not really a question of cost, and that's a harder thing to deal with. It's a question of the people to do it. And squash is not something we can go out with a robot or a machine just yet and get that done.
And you got to pick it every day.
Yep, every day, or it's not marketable, and you got to leave it in the field, and that's no good for
Some-
anybody.
Somebody said you take off on Sunday, you got a medium Monday.
That's a fact. That is 100% true. Well, hey, one thing on the trade side, which not necessarily for the export, but the import side of it. So there was a report out. USDA had some stuff out. So the President Biden issued a construction expansion permits for 3 of the South Texas bridges connecting us to Mexico. And Laredo, I guess, is the biggest import port coming through there. And looks like they've gotten the permits to expand that to a 10-lane bridge.
And I think that'll just take pressure off McAllen,
Yeah,
which the pressure's been pretty heavy on digesting that volume through there. But as long as they can continue to improve the Laredo piece, there's just a significant amount of avocados, tomatoes, the wet veg that come through there direct into the United States.
good news again for all of us, because that expansion of all those ports of entry, for bringing stuff off. Like I say, it takes pressure off of all the ports and helps with the flow of that stuff coming through, and ultimately should keep costs lower and help not drive up more inflationary cost in the ag space ideally. So
Freight's a big piece of what we all do, and the more efficient that border crossing is, will certainly hold the cost on the freight piece and the time it takes to get across. That's all beneficial.
yeah, no doubt about it, no doubt about it. Well, hey, look, on a fun note, I said we were going to jump the pond and go across. There was an article out about a Wimbledon strawberry grower that I'm sorry, it's a strawberry grower over in I believe in the UK that's working with Wimbledon. And you know what? He may be growing there in Wimbledon. I'm not sure. I don't have the details exactly. But either way, he's an indoor strawberry grower. I do know that, which is pretty intriguing. And I know we're trying to do a lot of that over here in the States. But and it's in a lot of ag space in Europe. But I was more intrigued by the fact that he's tying in, he's doing this big promotion, with the major tennis event, which I thought that was pretty awesome.
The more you can expose any fruits and vegetables to a larger crowd, it's just incredible. We've preached for a long time that what we grow is good medicine if we can just increase the consumption. So any of these major events that I think the avocado people have done a great job on the Super Bowl. This is the first I've seen on tennis, but I think any of these things that we can do marketing wise to expose it to a larger audience is incredible.
Yeah, and so I found my notes here. It's a Scotland grower, so it is the
Oh,
UK, but it's out of Scotland. Stewards of Tayside. And he's partnered with Asda, one of the retailers over there, and they've got a big strawberry promotion tied in with Wimbledon. And yeah, I mean, I think exactly what you're saying. The more we can tie in, I think what the avocado guys have done with the Super Bowl. It's definitely if you can afford that ticket, I mean, that's a great way to get on the map. But I'm trying to think. See, I wish they would have come up with something and called instead of pickleball, they'd have called it squash ball, right? Because I've been trying to think. I mean, I'm gonna have to maybe we do pickles, so I guess I'll tie our pickle program into doing pickleball promotion or something like that. But I mean, sports is a great way, via soccer, via any of that kind of stuff. I mean, the more we can tie in the whole health benefits, I think it's a fabulous concept.
Absolutely.
So, well, look, let's talk a little bit on the market side of the business. So you said you're growing a little bit of squash out there in West Texas. So I think it's been pretty good for you guys up until this point, growing wise. How is it now with the heat that's coming in, and how are you seeing the crop and on the squash deal?
Those peaks and valleys, I think, is the key thing. We had a couple of weeks there where we didn't have the competition, but we're starting to see some Arkansas squash show up in the Dallas area, Texas area. A lot of the local squashers, Uvalde, Jacksonville, Texas. There's just getting to be more and more competition, really through July, depending on this heat. But you know, I think it's great that we're starting to see some of the retailers support maybe a smaller grower and try to keep them alive. And as competition comes up, they maybe try not to take them to the bottom of what the market could be. And I think that's important if we're going to keep this domestic deal alive.
Yeah. Well, we definitely saw the squash market get aggressive. Let's say,
I can't recall it being upwards of $30, and we did that for a period of time.
Yeah, but like I say, that party's over, and we're now back down to what we're accustomed to seeing. Dustin and I talked about it on last week's show, but yeah, we're definitely right now in the midst of it, sub 10 for anything on the open market, really, on the
Absolutely.
on the yellow and Zook. I mean, the one space is, and I don't know, I don't do you don't do any organics, do you?
No, the only thing we do different than yellow and green would be the gray squash. The gray squash is really important to the Hispanic uh, grocery stores, and that one's really kind of a bright spot this year. The demand's held pretty steady on the gray squash. The thing we got to be careful is not to overplant it. But a good steady supply. The Hispanic chains have really supported that.
Yeah, gray squash is a sleeper. Sunfed, we're probably the one of the biggest guys in the gray spot squash space. It's been a good item for us, but yeah, I think that if you eat squash, I mean, if you haven't tried gray squash, you really ought to try it. And it's not only, I mean, Hispanics certainly it's a big deal, but you get into Middle Eastern culture, except they like it smaller, right? Hispanic or Latin community is going to be a larger size. And then when you get into the Asian population, they like the gray squash, but it's on an even much bigger scale. But outside the United States, it's a fairly popular item, and I think it's a sleeper and one that the more attention we can get on it, the better that growth's going to be in that category, and expand out into some of those other spots for sure. But yeah, what's your take on what's your outlook next week? You think this thing's going to get back above the 10 number? We're going to still be sloshing around here in the ugly numbers.
The third week of the month, or I've heard a lot of people say the twos, certainly drags markets down a little bit. I think we'll get a good uptick in the 4th of July week. And I think the one that, if you look out there, is that we've got to maintain the trajectory up in and consumption as we go into the third week of July and towards August when the dog days hit a little bit. We got to keep that momentum up.
Yeah. Well, I'm pushing for a 4th of July grill and squash ad, so I haven't seen anybody uh, putting that out. But I mean, we ought to have that. Should be watermelon and grilled squash should be just standard USA consumption this time of year.
We had it for dinner tonight.
Yeah, well, I'm a saute guy. I will grill when I'm grilling out, but I mean it's 110 degrees, so I'm bringing most of my cooking indoors right now, for the most part. But anyway, but yeah, the squash market. I mean, based on what I can tell from it, I do think that we're going to probably be in a tough slug for the next 8 to 10 days. Like I said, that 4th of July push should help us, just generating store traffic and like you say, people out grilling and that kind of thing. But yeah, my guess is by the time we get to second week of July, we'll start to see this thing start to get better. And the one thing I didn't ask you about, but we get into when we start to get to July, and you talk about the humidity and the heat. I mean, whitefly starts to become a big issue in Central Mex. Certainly becomes an issue where you guys are at, and then typically as you get to late July and early August, it dries up and it just gets hot, windy, and dry. And wind is no friend to squash.
We fight the white flies as we start killing the cotton for getting ready to harvest.
Yep.
It seems like we can battle it until they kind of defoliate the cotton, and then they got to go look for something greener to eat, and that's where we really fight that. But the cool thing about West Texas is that temperature will drop back 30 degrees from whatever it gets to in the afternoon, and it's a little higher, lower humidity, so it's worked out well. We've had, the teal family's grown out there for over 60 years, and it's just a good little niche.
Yeah. No, that is a dynamic or a microclimate that I forgot about. Certainly, we enjoy. I gripe about the 110 degrees, but we do get a nice reprieve at the nighttime. So I just have to do my grilling at 10 o'clock at night.
There you
So,
go.
hey, but continuing on real quick. I mean, one market that hasn't given up the strength, and that's the Green Bell market. I mean, holy Toledo, that sucker is it's just keeps on climbing. I don't know where that's going to go.
Yeah, it seems like the heat kind of cut back during bloom, and we're struggling to get size. And so that extra large market is 36, 38 and up,
Yeah.
but it's limited by the fact there isn't a lot of big pepper out there right now, and California's behind. But I had several food service guys out here tell me today even choice was 32, $34 and limited.
Oh yeah. No, that's a fact. I mean, I can tell you firsthand knowledge right now. Extra large is $34 on the dock. That's not delivered. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's close to $40 to get it in, depending on where you're coming out of. And you look at pricing last year, same time. It was somewhere between 15 to $18, same time last year. So it is way out of line. You mentioned you guys are doing some stuff. The Kentucky deal should be they're delayed. They're late getting in, but hopefully you're going to get some relief
You
on some
should
of
see
this.
Ohio, Michigan,
Yep.
Kentucky, Pennsylvania, North Carolina come in. The key's going to be can we get some size?
Yep, for sure. But yeah, and so right now my outlook on that, Mark. I mean, at these prices, I think if I'm a betting man, it's going to come down. I just don't know how quick. I don't think it'll be Monday, but I do think that at these levels, it's kind of getting to that point where people just won't buy it, kind of a deal when it gets to these prices. So you're kind of probably topping out in that market, and we'll probably see it through. I'm thinking into the front end of next week. By the time we get to this call next week, I think we'll start to see that deal coming apart. I damn sure hope so because I need it. I need it to adjust.
I
So.
agree.
And then yeah, the other market that's kind of held in. It's not gotten crazy. It's actually been really it's been in line with what normal trends, and that's the cucumber slicer market. What are you seeing on that in your area?
We're seeing we're seeing in the mid teens, mid to low teens, kind of continuing to hold in there pretty good, and until we get some East Coast support on production, I think that deal's going to hold in pretty steady.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the Cuke deal, we've been talking for several weeks. It looks, it has been the last couple of years, the last couple of summers. It's held in there pretty nicely, and it definitely shows signs that it's going to hold. And if you look at, like I say again, just last year, we're tracking almost identical against last year's market prices on the Cuke space, and if that thing holds trend, it should be a good price for selling in terms of, for the farmer, it should be good pricing. And for the retailer, they should be able to market it and sell it where they're not running off customers. So it's kind of found its little niche there. And I think it's going to hang in.
Craig, I think the thing we got to watch is it this week. I guess we got behind with the rain and some stuff, and the plane deal got awful sloppy. It
Ooh.
was below $5, so I think we just got to be able to maintain the crop as they're ready and keep the floors clean and not let the inventory build.
Yeah, no, there's no. That is a correct call on the plane deal, and I think we did touch on that last week. Even though, we're seeing supers in that $20 range, a little bit more. The planes were six,
Sick, yeah, sick,
sick and six. So
yeah.
yeah, for sure. But well, look, last but not least, we can touch on it. The Roma deal. I don't know if you do you deal much with Romas.
We do. That's one of our big things, and I have never seen a Roma market like we've seen the last 8 weeks. We dropped back down to 10 for a moment,
Yep.
but that thing is every bit of $22 to $24 today. I think we did struggle to maybe see some floors clean for the first time today. So that between that and the third week pulling down a little bit, we may see that soften a little bit. But I just don't think Mexico planted the numbers that they do have in the past, and that market has continued to be, in the higher teens, low 20s, and historically, that thing should be down around 10, $12.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And it's a crazy space. Like I say, that drop we had from all the way down, like you said, to that $10 bill, and now we're just climbing back out. And yeah, I was curious on kind of what your take was as to what's going on there. So you think there's less production? You think that's maybe going to be holding this thing up all summer?
Well, we saw a very tough buy this week on Romas, above and beyond what we needed. We actually loaded in West Virginia for the first time. We're loading in Arkansas. We're loading in Florida. We're loading in California and both Northern California production and Baja and Nogales. And we've never had to do that, Craig. There's not enough tomatoes to really pick and choose from out there today. And we keep thinking it's going to ease up a little bit, but one of the factors out of the rain that came across Mexico today is the greenhouses protected the aromas, but the mud getting in is a food safety issue. So they gave the pickers a day or two off just not to have to go through the mud and things. So, things we've never thought about in the past
Yeah.
are starting to be discussed.
Well, we talked about last week's show, the Rugo virus. You talk about, at least we did get those inspections out of the way, so it helps the
Yeah.
green bells and the Roma deal. But yeah, I'm like you. I mean, I just think that that tomato thing, we're going to see some impacts of not being able to make money, lack of water, labor
Labor.
issues, and I mean all those things are starting to converge in that space has got such a high demand. It's super sensitive to minor changes. I mean, some of the other stuff. I mean, if you get an eggplant deal, there's good demand on eggplant, but it's not like it's a staple. But but
Right.
the tomato category and Romas in particular, those are staples. I mean, when you go into a store, you're expecting to buy those, and everybody does. You know, everybody puts that in their basket, and um,
Well, politics aside, Craig, Mexico feeds the Roma wagon. It's the major producer. We don't see the Romas out of Florida and other areas that we see. So, if labor, water, and all of the issues decrease and we've also heard for the first time that the market in Mexico has held strong this year,
yeah.
and so all that competes with what we're doing, but. There just doesn't seem to be the aromas available that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. I mean, I've talked with different people about, you know, the thing we talk about driving consumption, right? And I ran some numbers a few weeks back on, uh, you know, although per capita consumption hadn't changed, if you calculate it against population growth, uh, there's a lot more tomatoes, Romas being consumed and that requires production. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, I don't care if you're selling cars or you're selling tomatoes. You've got a certain level of demand, and even though you don't have more people buying, the per capita consumption, you don't have people having they have two cars instead of they don't grow to three. Their per capita consumption is the same, but you got more people buying cars. You got to have more cars manufactured, and that's the same thing that works with us. And if we want consumption to grow, we got to have the product, right? You've got to have the product here, and so we've got to be not reducing how much is coming in, and we got to continue to be looking at how do we get more stuff coming in because the populations continue to grow even though it's much slower, and there's more mouths at that per consumption rate, and it's a growing deal. I mean, so yeah, and if we start to
If
scale
we
back,
don't, if
it's
we,
going to be a
if we
problem.
don't see if we don't see some solutions out of H2A and get a little more manageable expense to labor, it's just going to increase the demand of growing it in some other place. And right now, that happens to be Mexico on the Roma issue. But this
Yeah,
labor and water is just a massive impact into what men you do.
yeah, and then that's really something for everybody to take heart that is listening. I mean, it seems like every show I do now is around that. But the reason being is it is relevant to everybody in this supply chain. I don't care if you're trucking. I don't care if you're a box manufacturer. If you're in this supply chain, those three things right now are major forces that we need to be contending with. And some of it's got some of it's got to be done at the government level, and then some of it's got to be done in other ways, right? Technology or whatever. But at the end of the day, those are things that we got to have solutions to.
Well, it just impacts future planning too. We were in D.C. and talked about the treaty, but the water levels in the Rio Grande are at a level where a lot of insurance and banks are not backing future plannings, and that's troublesome as well. That's before you even get to labor and all the additional costs that come at a farmer. And I just think the American consumer has no idea as what a grower goes through today.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's no question they don't. Like I say, so many people. We're not going to change that. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, most of them don't know where their produce comes from, their beef or anything like that. It just shows up. They think that's the way they got it. I don't know. I mean, and I get it.
And
If I wasn't in this, I'd probably feel the same way. But
now we got more and more people that'll bring it to your front door. You don't have to go to the store and get it.
don't exactly now. It's just magically being done and arrives at your door for sure. So. Well, look, man, that's all I think I've got today. I mean, those are quite a few hot topics and things. Maybe you can take to the Baja there and ponder over the weekend during the midst of this wedding. Are you taking any good wine out there?
I'm kind of relying on them to take care of me. It's that's a gamble.
I believe you're a gambler. but I believe that you're probably hedging your bet somehow on that wine piece, and I
I
bet you've
might
got a
have
backup
reached.
plan.
I might have reached out and made sure we're okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet you've hedged that just a slight bit, but no, man. Like I say, the day before a trip, I appreciate you jumping on and taking the time here to chat about this stuff and go through it, and hopefully some of this helps out there with the folks listening to us, and really appreciate it, Tommy. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate what y'all are doing. I think it's important to understand that farming is a bigger gambler than I've ever been. They got everything working against them. We're fighting labor, we're fighting water, and I just hope that the consumer appreciates what the American farmer does, or really the global farmers do to put food on the table.
Amen to that for sure. And hey, I definitely want to give a shout out. I mean, I know you're tied closely with Horton Fruit. They're out of the Midwest, so I definitely want to give them a shout out. But now, if somebody's looking for some of that beautiful West Texas squash, I mean, do they go to Horton? How do they get that?
So we actually have opened up a new distribution center in the Irving area, Dallas Fort Worth, and we're just building that Horton footprint. We brought the 60, 70-year-old company to Texas, and we're trying to take that family philosophy and customer service and a little bit of Texas flair.
Well, guys, that's if you didn't know, like I say, because this is they're just starting up, but definitely look up the Horton Fruit Company. Check in with Mike Wise over there. Blow him up and find out how you can connect with these guys over and I believe are south of Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
We're in Irving. We're really across the
Oh,
street from where the old Cowboy Stadium used to be.
all right, all right. Well, right there in the heart, then you guys right there positioned perfectly between Dallas and Fort Worth. So,
Yeah.
um, good location.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely want to give you that, and I love the folks over there at Horton for sure too, Tommy. So great group of people, and anytime glad to give them a shout out. All right, man. Well, look, let's get
Keep
that.
doing a good job. I appreciate what y'all do.
Indeed, we're going to keep trying to hustle this thing as best we can, but yeah, get yourself some good rest, and hopefully y'all flying down to Mexico all goes well, and yeah, wish you the best, Tommy. Take care and have a good
Happy
trip.
4th to everybody.
Happy 4th of July, Bubba. Thanks. See y'all. We're out here, guys. Take care, and we'll see y'all.